Hi, welcome to Best in Fest. I'm Leslie Lepage, the director of the La Femme International Film Festival, and this is a podcast for people who are interested in advancing their career in TV and film and learning all the dirty little secrets of Hollywood. My guest today is Raeann Giles, and she's an awesome filmmaker. She has been in the La Femme International Film Festival. She's an alum of ours, but she is an award-winning filmmaker. She received her MFA from UCLA's School of Theater, Film, and Television in screenwriting. She has a winning digital series called Playdates Anonymous and Stay at Home Mom, which she wrote, produced, and starred in, streaming on Amazon and the Comedy Dynamics Network. Her directorial debut was in 2020 with the feature film Angel. But really, really interesting is that she has degrees in molecular biology and neuroscience psychology from the University of Colorado. So why on earth would you want to come into entertainment with these wonderful degrees? Let's just talk about that for a second.
Okay. Well, I've always been interested in entertainment. It was what I wanted to do since I was a little girl. And of course, I had parents that were like, no, you should be a doctor or a lawyer. So I kind of naturally went that science direction in undergrad. And then I did go get my law degree in law school. And then I went straight to entertainment when my education was done. And I went after what I really wanted to do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So have you incorporated some of that knowledge into scripts, or are you planning on somehow utilizing that specialty?
Yeah, I absolutely have. It's funny how it does pop up. So when I was at UCLA, I did a program called from the Sloan Foundation, where you compete to write a film that's based on real science. I did it for 2 years. The first year I was one of the finalists, and the second year I actually won the competition. And so I worked with a PhD scientist, and I wrote a female-driven comedy, actually, that was basically based on genes, and like 20 years on the future. It was called Designer Kids. So 20 years in the future, if we were to actually design our babies, what it would be like. So it was kind of like a Bad Moms meets Gattaca, if you can envision that.
Yeah.
So my science did come up, it has come up with writing films that have to do with real science. And then I think my law degree definitely comes in handy when I start producing and when I'm working with contracts and working with SAG, and I think the overall producing skills of having to run a business, because, every time you make a film, it's kind of like your new little business you're running. So I've definitely found use for it. Well, in some capacity.
And I'm sure you will put more of that to use as, your career furthers down the path. So let's talk about your first kind of touch into that the film and television world was through screenwriting. So how did that work for you, and then how did that kind of launch into defaulting producing or directing, or this hybrid you've become?
Well, I actually entered entertainment as an actor. So I started acting probably almost 20 years ago. I was doing a lot of I started in San Diego. I was doing lots of commercials and stuff like that. I did a TV series called Hacienda Heights when I was in my early 20s. And then I slowly got into writing. I was living in Hawaii for like 6 months, and there's not a whole lot of acting opportunities out there. Right. So I started writing, and then I eventually applied to UCLA, and I went into their MFA program, and it was something that I decided. I started having kids, and so I also knew being on set long days with newborns really wasn't going to work out. And so that's kind of when I started writing. And then I went to UCLA, and then once I was at UCLA and writing, I took producing classes and just kind of ventured out into other areas of entertainment, and I learned that I like to produce and that I love writing and I love acting, and then just recently I learned that I love directing. So just tried a little bit of everything.
Well, that's good. That's kind of how the hybrids are, born. So let's talk about your first project. How did that go for you when you had created that first project and then started soliciting that in the festival circuit?
So my first project was called Stay at Home Mom. I originally wrote it as a half-hour TV series, And then I had a instructor that said, hey, you should try and make this into like a web series or, short snack size content sort of thing to put out there. So I did that just from scratch. I kind of started, I wrote it into small little 2 to 3 minute episodes. And then I gathered a cast and I gathered a crew and we shot it. And then from there, I didn't really know anything about the festival circuit. And I just started picking a lot of people's brains, reading a lot of different stuff on it, started submitting to a lot of web fests that were out there. And lo and behold, we got into a handful of them and started traveling to different places to these web fests. And it just kind of went from there. And it was such a great experience because there was never a goal of, I'm going to make this and I want it distributed and I want it in these festivals. It was an experiment to be behind the camera. And because I'd always been in front of the camera. And so that experiment just kind of launched into so many other opportunities and really showed me what a collaborative nature filmmaking is, to be able to, I think that's the greatest thing about creating your own stuff is you really learn how to dabble in everything because you have to, because you don't have the budget to hire, every single department in a big department.
Well, since this was kind of your first venture into it, did you think that this was possibly going to be used as a proof of concept, or did that come in afterwards, or was that not even, a thought in your head?
Originally, it wasn't even a thought. Originally, it was just I want to know what it's like to put this together and to make something. And then once we had it made, I was getting really good feedback on it. And so people were saying, no, you should submit this into festivals, And then by doing that and getting it screened and meeting more people at these festivals and collaborating with other people and networking with other people, I got a manager out of that first project. And then my manager was the one that started taking it around. And eventually it got distributed through the Comedy Dynamics Network. And streamed on their channel on a variety of, they're on all the different platforms. And so, it was just an experiment at first, just to do it. And then I kind of figured, I've always, you always kind of learn, people always say, your first project, it's just, you're going to throw it in the trash. And so you got to make it to like 10. So in my head, that was kind of what I was thinking. I was like, it's just an experiment, but I was so grateful when it, it did as well as it did.
Yeah, well, and it also helped secure you representation. So how did that come about? Because that's a question that a lot of filmmakers listening in want to know how that works out or how that can happen.
Well, I think how it normally works out is you keep creating and you keep doing your best and somebody sees it and they will come to you. You can, of course, solicit people, and that's in, the talent industry more. That's kind of how I originally started submitting headshots and resumes to commercial agents and working my way from there. But with this, I had one of my classmates he was in the producing program, and he was working at a management company at the time. He's still one of my managers, and he saw it in class. And then, he asked me, hey, do you have representation? And I was currently looking for a manager. And so I met with them, and voila, and they're still my managers today. And so I think it's just a matter of making your stuff and getting it seen, getting it out there to be seen, because when other people see it, and if it's good enough and it's ready, then they'll come to you and, they'll ask you if you're represented.
Well, moving from that project on to your second project. So how did that come about? You went through the festival circuit. You've now had this peer take you on in the management company, and then you're now going on to your next step, like a project that isn't supposed to be like the throw out project, right? The project you create out of passion.
So we did 2 seasons of the Stay-at-Home Mom. So we did, another batch of episodes, so to speak. And then I decided that I was going to do something actually made for snack size content, which at the time I thought, I can do a whole bunch of episodes on a budget. I'm going to keep it in one location. It was called Playdates Anonymous. I used some of the moms that were in Stay-at-Home Moms, so it kind of spun off from that. I am a mom, so that's why all this, content has to do with mom stuff, and, it's just kind of the world I'm in. And so I designed it just for snack size content, which is funny because it worked in the sense that just the production value of it and the storytelling of it worked really well. But it cost just as much. I thought I was going to get like a ton of episodes out of, one location and everything. And I learned that wasn't the case. Yeah. So we did the same. We, put it into more festivals. We got to premiere, at Hollyweb, which was at Universal City Walk at the AMC, which was a very exciting place to premiere your work. And then we went on to distribute through Amazon. So now you can watch Playdates Anonymous on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, as well. How was that experience, you working with the Amazon platform once this was really launched?
It was really great. So with the first project, it was through the network. So the deliverables were sent to them and they, did all the work. With this one, we did it more independently, working directly with Amazon. And so they have everything laid out very well for the filmmaker. I felt like, everything was very straightforward as far as what they needed. And as far as getting the content out there, it is very professional, so, I was hiring somebody to do different parts of it, for all their deliverables. But it was great. I mean, I think they're a really easy, straightforward, well put together company they're easy to work with.
Now, once you had it on the platform, did you do a lot of social media push and funneling people to Amazon to try and get those unique likes and unique views up?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's really about finding, your audience, first of all, your audience. And so running Facebook ads is great. Running like Google ads is great. If you can do just your own social media push, having your own pages, for all the social media pages for that particular show, tagging everybody involved so that they go and share with everybody else. And then really finding those groups that are going to watch your content. So for mine, it was more of the parents and the new parents and going to their pages and, interacting with their pages and so that your work is shown and interacted with their pages. So yeah, I mean, there's some great people that have been in our cast too that really push the stuff. And I think also finding people for your cast that have a good social media following, it helps. It really does help at the end of the day because they can reach out to more people as well.
On that second project, was that a focus for you? Did you go out specifically looking for actors that had a big social media following because you knew you were potentially going to go to that platform?
For that project, not necessarily. We did that more so for the feature for Angel, but for that project, I was still kind of in that experimental phase where I'm like, well, I don't really know what's going to happen with this. I want to make it for snack size content. And we did have a couple people that were already on the Stay at Home Mom show that had a good following. So we continued to use them. But I think whenever I'm casting, it's like I keep it in mind, but I'm so about like who fits that character, and who really just embodies that character even more so than the social media following. I feel like that's like a second layer, for me personally. So I tend to just go towards what I think is going to make the content that much stronger and the story that much truer and stronger. And then if it's really between, the blonde or the brunette type of thing, then sometimes, I will like, okay, who has more followers, and it comes into play. I mean, you can't, I'd be lying if I say it didn't come into play. But with Playdates, we did have a couple people that had good followings, but really at the end of the day, they were hired because they were just fantastic actors. I mean, Angela Relucio, she was in Angel, which was screened in Euro Festival. She was my supporting actress, and then she was also in Playdates. And she is just a phenomenal actress, and she does have a good following because she's a great actress, So I think the good following a lot of times just comes hand in hand with the great talent anyways.
Well, you took her and moved her into your feature. So when you got to your feature, now you've had a successful first experience, successful second experience, and now you're going into that leap, right? Which was Angel. So the first two were self-funded, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so how did you handle casting and funding on that second or that third project, that first feature? Yeah.
So funding for that project ended up pretty much being another self-funded project, but with a lot more outlets of borrowing money and taking money from winning awards. I've, won cash awards from my other projects that I've kept in a savings account to be able to make the next project. So a lot of things came from that. As far as casting Angela, we did offer her that role first to see if she would take it, because I knew she was such a strong actress, and the type of material that we're doing for that character was just so heavy. I mean, there's a scene that is in this movie theater room, and the story is about this girl remembering a miscarriage and a pregnancy lost in her past, and this footage comes up on the screen that her character needs to react to. And when we filmed it, she had never seen the footage before. She had read the script but hadn't seen the footage. So we were hoping to get somebody's real reaction to the footage, because the footage was also real. It wasn't a narrative. It was from a docu-reality that we had been making. And she was, I knew I needed to get somebody that was just so genuine in their work, and just so polished in their work, because it was going to be a very emotional scene. And she was phenomenal, and when she wanted to do it, we were just so grateful, and we were just like, thank you for wanting to do this. And then she blew their socks off when she did it. I mean, she just won Best Supporting Actress last night at the International Christian Film Festival that she took home for that scene.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah, it's a phenomenal movie. But how did you come up with the idea for this? Had this been incubating in your head for a while?
What's crazy is it naturally happened. So I wrote this film about a year before I had actually gotten pregnant. Just something brand new. I was always doing comedy, and I decided to do something a little more multi-genre. There is some comedy in it in the beginning, and then it becomes a very dramatic, real story. So I wrote the story, and then I became pregnant. I put the story aside for a little bit, and we started shooting a docu-reality series on the pregnancy. And then halfway through the pregnancy, we lost the pregnancy. And then it occurred to me, I was like, gosh, I have all this footage, this real life footage of a family going through a pregnancy. And then I wrote this movie that's happening to me now. It was just crazy. Now I'm afraid to write anything bad happen, because I'm afraid it's going to happen to me again. I'm only writing about winning the lottery and happy things. And so I was like, gosh, I bet we should make this. Like, I just felt like this movie has to be made now, because now I'm experiencing it as a real person. And I thought it would be really interesting to use all of the real footage that we had as my character's memories of what had happened during the pregnancy. And that's what we went ahead and made kind of a combo of it. So all the flashbacks in the movie are the actual footage of when I was pregnant with that pregnancy.
Taking that tremendous loss and incorporating it and utilizing into art was a very daring thing. Looking back at that, what was your state of mind did you have to compartmentalize this in order to achieve this end result of this wonderful movie?
I mean, in some ways, I think it was very cathartic. I went after it right away, because we lost the baby in September and we filmed in February. And so I think I dove into the work, because I think I was so scarred by the whole thing. I needed to create. I think Toni Morrison has this great quote that says something like, about now is the time to make art when you're suffering, right? And so I think I went into that, and I think I needed to. And I needed to tell the story. Now, a year and a half later, I look at it and go, wow, what was I doing? That was I literally had 50 people in my house filming this one scene where I'm crying and I'm reacting and I'm trying to keep it together, but it's hard because it was real and it had really happened. And now I look back at it and it's hard, and the editing was hard. I had to watch it so many times, but I really just felt like it happened to me for a reason, and I am a storyteller, and so I wanted to put it out there, because I think so many women go through this and it's not talked about a lot. And for whatever reason, I had filmed the pregnancy, and for whatever reason, I had put myself on tape right after I lost the baby and just let it out. And so I felt like this was just something very real that, should be shared out there, because I thought, it could help other people and make an awareness of this. And since then, I have some very good news. In the process, at the end of the editing, I ended up getting pregnant again. I had a second miscarriage, and then I ended up getting pregnant again after thinking that being told I couldn't get pregnant anymore. And I actually just had my rainbow baby 2 weeks ago. She was born on May 5th. And so during this whole time, I couldn't watch the movie. I mean, when we premiered at your wonderful festival, I was 9 weeks pregnant. I was completely scared I was going to lose the baby again. And I didn't really watch it when we had it on. I could watch parts of it, but the hard parts, I would have to step out of the room and then I would come back. And so it's hard. It can be really hard to watch, but the whole story together now, I'm so happy that I shared it, because I think as filmmakers, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's all about finding these stories in life that other people do share and that other people can relate to. And I mean, that's how you speak to humanity, right? That's how you help other people. That's how we all kind of connect. And if you're able to tell these stories, I think it's such a gift to be able to tell them.
Have you had that kind of response off of people who have seen this film, women specifically, that have walked out of the theater going, oh my gosh, that's my life, or I can relate to that?
I have. I have had so many emails and so many messages from people that thank me for sharing it, and that just say thank you for sharing this. Even after the fact, there have been people that saw it and, had never had a miscarriage, and since then have had miscarriages and immediately messaged me or called me and said, hey, this just happened to me. Thank you for sharing your story. And there's been a enormous response. I mean, just even when I had the miscarriage and I had put it out there, I was so surprised that probably within a 24-hour period, I had 100 responses of people saying this happened to me, or my aunt or my sister or somebody, and I think it really just has given people an opportunity to talk about it and to be open about it. And because you don't always feel like you can be open about stuff like that. And you don't always want to. It's hard. You kind of need people that know how you feel in order to talk about it.
Well, as you were taking this, really sensitive material, this wonderful feature around into the festival circuit, what was your mentality on your strategy, or did you have a strategy when you were looking at the festivals on where you wanted to place your film child?
Right. So first of all, I think as we all do, we go for, we throw a few into the top festivals like Sundance here and there. And then we look at, of course, the more local festivals that we can get people into the seats. However, it was very challenging because of COVID, because, we stopped filming 2 weeks, I believe, before we shut down. And so, one, we were just thankful that we got the footage. And then two, when we were starting, after editing, we were starting to submit and then starting to see, a lot of festivals shut down. And that's one thing I was so grateful for La Femme was you guys kept going, and it was amazing. And I was so grateful, and we premiered with you guys. So we were so excited to still tell people, hey, you can still watch it, you got to sit at home, but you can still watch it and you can still interact and be a part of this. So that was very exciting. Thank you so much for doing that, because we did get a lot of festival emails that unfortunately they couldn't do it, and they had to skip that year. So I think that was an extra challenging part of getting into festivals this last year. And so what we did was in the beginning, we were kind of looking at the female film markets for sure, some of the more faith-based ones, because it does have a faith-based portion of it, and then just general, our general film market as well, and a little kind of sprinkled a little bit everywhere. And then we felt it was really hard to gauge where it was going to fit because so many festivals had to shut down. So we kind of took a break. We'd still submit, but we kind of took a break just in case, waiting for things to pick up. But now we've started submitting more again. And we just did the first in-person festival, literally the last few days, was in Orlando, Florida. And so, it screened Friday there, and then we were nominated for 3 awards and took home one of them last night. And then we're continuing to start to submit again. And we're finding that this film particularly fits well within the female genre and the faith-based genre. And so, yeah, I think it's really about finding what festivals take your type of work, and your type of audience, because each festival seems to have, their own types of.
That is something I say to new filmmakers all the time. You really have to look at your content and see where it goes, because it may not apply to those top 10 festivals that we all know the names of. And and you may just be wasting your money sending your film there when you could utilize that to submit to 2 or 3 or 4 other festivals with that monetary, disbursement. So really, taking it from the marketing standpoint, you have to really match it with the right place and not just throw it up against like bubblegum. So did you go to Orlando? Did you go to the festival? Did you fly in?
I did not go because I just had my baby and I didn't know. My baby came a week early, but originally I hadn't planned on going because I knew I'd be 1 week postpartum. I didn't even know if I'd be out of the hospital yet. But we are 2 weeks postpartum. We did have a representative go, though, that represented the film, which was really great. And I wanted to go so badly, but, I'm nursing my baby, and I haven't slept since May 4th. So
listen, every woman out there that's had a child knows what that feels like. That first 4 months is ugly. You're exhausted and tired, and you just can't get your head above water.
I know it is very challenging. Somehow, we've just been kind of, floating here and there, and I'm so thankful for the people that did go to Orlando, to represent the film and everyone helping us out.
Well, now that you're kind of, the sea legs for the festivals are starting to come back again, are you now thinking about distribution, or what's your angle on distribution and this film? How is that working out?
Right. So we've taken a few meetings for distribution, and we've kind of waited, to see. We want to continue the festival circuit because we wanted to. One, it's just nice to network. I think every time you make something on your own, it's such a great calling card to use that to go meet more people. And I felt like I didn't really get the full use of this project because of COVID. And so we want to continue to keep it in festivals for a little bit longer here and give it its fair chance to, be seen and to see what type of feedback we can get and more feedback we can get to see where it's going to be placed best. We'd love to probably get it in some type of faith-based platform because I think that it would fit well there. That seems to be a lot of the feedback we're getting. But then we could also go the Amazon route again. That's an option for us. Or, who knows what else will come up. But yeah, we're keeping it open for a little bit just so we can continue to get out there and network with the project. And then we'll find a nice home for it, probably the end of this year, beginning of next year, where everybody can see it then.
Well, the distribution are starting to open up, are looking for content. So the timing, I think, is going to work out well for you. Moving into your next project and utilizing your management company, are you having them take this film around as also a calling card, having them focus more towards your next project? And tell us about what your next project is.
Right. So since this project has been done, I've been doing a lot of writing. And so I've been writing rom-com features. So maybe that will come true for me this time.
Rom-com.
I know. I'll inherit some beautiful vineyard and whatever.
in Italy.
Yes, that's the hope. That's the next. Now I just write what I want to come true. But yeah, so no, I've been writing rom-coms, and my management, they do take things that I've done and use that as leverage for the next project. Take my scripts, shop them around. I recently have worked with an amazing producer that's given me some opportunities to take my rom-coms into development. So we have one that is in development right now, and hopefully at some point we'll get to go into production. And I'm at this point, I'm continuing to write scripts and then continuing to think of the next passion project. I feel like, that's always kind of what I do. Is there's the the work that you put out there to make your money and to continue, your career part. And then there's always the part of me that's making the next passion project as well, because if you're not getting the next job, then at least you have your calling card for the next year that you can go around the festival circuits again, meet more people, get your next job. So I usually kind of have both going. So right now it's my feature scripts that are going, and then I have a little passion project idea starting to circulate in my head of what's going to be filmed next for that next independent passion project.
Well, explain to us your working method for chiseling out the structure of a script and how you plot your script once you have this, here's an idea, here's the gem of what I want to do.
At UCLA, they teach in a 3-act structure, which I think is fantastic, and I always go by that. And what I normally do is I normally really try to grasp my characters first, flesh out my characters, know who I'm working with and what their story is to tell. And then I normally do a very short type of outline in a 3-act structure that basically I see if I have all my bullet points in each of my acts to make sure I have a solid story and a solid backbone to a story before I even go in to flesh anything out. And if I feel like the characters are strong, the story and the message is strong, and I have all the bullet points through 3 acts, then I'll move forward with it. And from there, I usually outline, and by outlining, I go through each scene, and I have, where the scene's going to take place, what's going to happen in the scene, and I write out all my scenes within all the acts, making sure I hit every, act break and everything that should happen in each act of that story. And then once the outline is all there, then I go in and then I start actually writing the dialogue. So the dialogue comes in last, and by then I kind of know my characters better and the voice of them. And I'll go through and do one draft of it. And then after that, I do many drafts. And so I'll do a draft that's strictly for the main character, just to get their voice in there. And then I'll do a draft that's strictly for the supporting character, to make sure their voice is distinctly different. I'll do another draft to make sure that, just cleaning it up every time. And I think that's the fun part. I think the first draft, it's hard because, you're just trying to get it out there and it's not how it's going to be exactly. It's just it's the starting point. And then every time you get to chisel it down, I think that's where the fun happens, because that's where you really get to be very intricate about how your character speaks or what they do or different parts of the scene. You can figure out what you really need and what you don't need, because you learn that you pretty much don't need most of what you write down. And I think great storytelling really comes in how can you show it, instead of say it, and getting rid of as much exposition as you possibly can. And so, yeah, I probably do like 20 drafts after that first draft until I think like, okay, we can show this to someone.
Well, within the scenes, do you look at the scene and ask questions about your characters within that scene to make sure that scene is complete? How does that work within, the method that you use?
With every scene, I always, of course, make sure there's a beginning, middle, and end to my scene. And then I make sure that it needs to be there for the story, that something is happening within that scene that moves the story along. Because if nothing's happening and it's just 2 people out to lunch and they're just kind of talking about whatever, we don't need it. And so I really make sure that, it has those components. And then I make sure that, the dialogue is concise within that scene, and that we don't say too much. We show as much as we can. And I make sure the characters are where they need to be, and make sure the characters are developing where they should be within that part of the story and within that part of the scene. And then I make sure the scenes are really short. And then I keep cutting it and try and get that scene to be as short as it can possibly be with still moving the story along.
Right. That's a very good strategy. And for those listening in, she's talking about what others term as a step outline, where you detail each one of the scenes within that first act, second act, third act structure, and then you fill in the dialogue afterwards. So for those young filmmakers and writers listening, that's what she's talking about. What bit of advice would you give to a younger filmmaker starting out?
I would say go make something. Just start. It doesn't matter where you start. There's never a perfect time to start because you're never going to have as much money as you want to have. You're never going to have all the, pieces and everything that you think you need to have to do something. So you just start with what you have and you go with it, and you write your script, or if you have a partner or something, you sit down and you write it. And I think making a schedule and a timeline is the best thing. That's what I always do. I say, I want to make this by this date, which means to fill in from that date back to where I am today. This is what I need to do every week to get there, and give yourself some sort of schedule to create something and to make something. So, I think you just start, and then you educate yourself as much as you can, whether it be classes somewhere or reading. There's so much great literature on writing and filmmaking out there. Everything's on the internet. There's so many videos. I can't tell you how much stuff I've learned on YouTube from 12-year-olds on just how to light something, or, you'd be amazed at the information out there. But you just learn as much as you can, and you especially be open to feedback, because, in the beginning, we all want to do it right, and we all want to do it perfect, and we all want to be known to be really good at what we're doing. But the fact of the matter is, it takes a lot of time to get good at anything, right? Including filmmaking. So you start where you are, you accept where you are, and you go for it, and you keep going. And if you really love it, you'll just want to continue to do it. And as you continue to do it, you'll just become better, because you'll keep practicing. But I think the main key to starting out is, making a goal. I'm going to make this short, or, I'm going to make whatever I'm making. I'm going to write something, whatever it is that you're going to do, write it down, make your timeline, make yourself stick to that. And you'll have something, and you'll have something tangible that you started with, and educate yourself, and never stop educating yourself, because filmmaking always changes. What they want out there and the way they do it always changes. It's so different, in the eyes of everybody, that everybody's feedback, is useful. And you never make it. That's the other thing too, that I think a lot of people that aren't in filmmaking, they're like, oh, has she made it? And you're like, you just keep learning. You do it because you love it. And some people will think you made it and some people won't. And that's just how it is.
Exactly. Any plans for financing for your next one coming down the pike? Are you thinking about crowdfunding, or do you have some approaches that you're working on?
So for the features that I'm working with, I do have producers and stuff that are taking care of that side of it if it does go into production. And then my own personal projects, I don't normally crowdfund, but what I've normally done is, just different money I've made off of previous projects, I tend to put in a pool. I'm still acting, I still do commercials and stuff all the time, so I tend to take a portion of the money I make and I just save it for my next project. I kind of always do my next project, even if I only spend a few thousand on it, I always kind of save it. It's just part of my learning process. One, you can think, if you make something, you can pay to go to classes too, but sometimes it really does help to just, and maybe that month instead of classes, you're gonna make something with that money instead. And so I tend to put a little bit away always to continue just my development of my own craft and my own passion projects. So, it just depends on what the project is and how much I need, I think, in order to pull it off. And then that's when I'd either go out to crowdfunding or save a little bit, or it's usually a combination of different things that pulls the money together to make it happen. And it's always very low budget. We made Angel on a very low feature film budget that I think everybody, when I originally told them, what we're doing, they just kind of laughed at me. They're like, you're not going to make a feature film. And it's amazing what you can do, though. We shot the whole thing at my house, on my property, and that saved a ton of money right there, and you learn to wear a lot of hats, and you can save a lot of money, and you can make stuff happen, and you find people that are passionate about the story you're telling, and they'll help you out, and then you help them out on their next project, and you can get stuff done, you can make stuff.
That's the team spirit of filmmaking. So what is a dirty little secret of Hollywood that you wish somebody had told you, that you're just like, oh, gosh, if I had known that, that would have saved me so much? Do you have one you can share with us?
A dirty little secret. Oh, boy. Let's see that I won't get in trouble for telling. Well, one thing I did find interesting, because at UCLA, I met a lot of name people, right, that are very successful. But one thing I learned is not everybody is super filthy rich. They might be for a little bit, for like 3 years. But when the show ends or something ends, people go back, they leave their $7 million home and they go back and live in an apartment until that next job comes along. And so I think that one thing I always thought was, once you're working all the time, you're doing really well and you're making a lot of money. And that's not necessarily true. It's like this, so you save your money. And if you have a really good year, you don't go buy the $1 million home. You go, how long can this last me? Because I may not get another job for the next 3 years. So there's a lot of people that, I met that were, A-list people that they disclosed their times of when, the show was over. I didn't get another show for 5 years, and we struggled during that time. And I had friends that I even watched do that. So I think it's not like you made it and now the residuals just roll in with dough constantly and you're like rich forever. I think that's something that not everybody that people think happens, but it's not always true.
That is an amazing dirty little secret that I wish people really realized, that it is an up and down roller coaster ride, and you will have high years where you bring in a lot of money and then other years that you don't, and it's, you have to survive on those low periods. And so it's not just everyone gets rich and can buy an island somewhere. Thank you so much for coming in. And all those that want to submit their film to the film festival this year, go to Film Freeway and search on La Femme International Film Festival, or go to lafemme.org. Don't forget to like us on the podcast platforms you're listening to Best in Fest on. And if you want to see the visual component of this, tap into our YouTube channel, La Femme Film Festival, and rate us on iTunes. Do you want to shout out your socials, so if people have things they want to get to you or reach out to you, they can do so?
Sure. So it's Raeann.Giles, and that's on Instagram and Facebook. I'm on Twitter, but I'm not on there very often, so I think my last post was like 3 years ago. But I'm on Facebook and Instagram actively, and then the film that was in La Femme is themovieangel.com.
And anyone listening in, go there and watch this movie. It's a phenomenal movie. Thank you, Raeann Giles, for coming on Best in Fest.
Oh, thank you for having me so much.
Don't forget, listen to Best in Fest, and we'll see you next time.